This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief has been powered by none other than Limitless Adventures. Check out their 5th evolution new genres for your 5e game. 5th evolution, or 5 Evo as like we like to say, takes the wildly popular 5e game mechanics and applies them to new games, superheroes, World War II, and 80s horror. If you know anything about Game Relief, I really like my 80s stuff, so 80s horror is great, superheroes are okay, and my son, Wizard Leaf, he's a big fan of World War II, so definitely worth checking out this new adventure by Limitless Adventures that is up on Kickstarter currently, and they're going about 7 more days, ending next Friday, the 29th of June. So definitely check this out, and thank you so much for powering this episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief. We really appreciate it, Limitless Adventures. Now, on with the show.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Astoria is a land bustling with productivity and growth. New towns, factories, and railroads are springing up across the land. A few savvy business tycoons, you and your opponents, are determined to make their fortunes on the crest of this wave. These tycoons start out as the producers of the key commodities: wheat to feed the growing towns and factories, wood and iron to build them, coal to fuel the trains and factories, and manufactured goods and luxuries fill the insatiable demand of the animals of Astoria. Cornering the market for the most valuable commodities can create small fortunes that can be invested into new businesses, turning them into huge fortunes. The sky is the limit during the Gilded Age.
Did that sound familiar to you guys? It didn't to me neither, but this is a story of Raccoon Tycoon, a new game currently on Kickstarter. And tonight we're lucky enough to have Glen from Forbidden Games, who was one of the creators and masterminds behind this great game. Is that correct, Glen? Is that how you fall in line with Raccoon Tycoon?
Oh, I suppose just game designer would work.
Okay, well, there you go, game designer. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. Glad we could have you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Yeah, thanks for joining us. So before, I know we've had you on the show before, but perhaps somebody hasn't listened to the previous episode where you were on. It's been a little while, and if they haven't, they're lost, I guess. Maybe they'll go back and listen. But per se, they haven't listened before. Let's rewind a little bit for them, and also I want to thank them for joining us and listening to the show. But yeah, if they didn't listen to that last one, let's rewind a little bit. How did you get back? How did you get into tabletop gaming? We don't have to go back too far, of course, unless you were born into tabletop board gaming. But how did you get started playing them, Glenn?
Yeah, I mean, I like most gamers, I was a big fan of the games back in the 70s and 80s, but more recently, my first foray into tabletop gaming was when I started Eagle Games back in 2000. I founded the company so that I could publish some games that I had designed. They were big box games with miniatures, which at the time was something that really only a couple of companies were doing. But now with Kickstarter, it's kind of exploded. But back in 99, 2000, when I thought it was a good idea, not a lot of companies were doing it.
Yeah, this was big. Yeah, so this was before Kickstarter, and what a couple Tuesdays ago with Kickstarter, I want to say, I don't remember how many Tuesdays ago, but there was like at least 29, if not more, games that launched to Kickstarter on that Tuesday. So it's going crazy.
It is. It's out of control in a good way. I mean, it's hard to fathom all the games, but it in another way, it's kind of a golden age of board gaming, where 20 years ago, when I thought it might be worthwhile to start Eagle, board gaming was sort of dying out. Video games and computer games were taking over, and not too many people were playing board games at the time. Not too many people were making them.
So what do you think's changed? Because there seems to be a lot more video games, at least a lot more video game consoles out there and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, the video game industry is very healthy, bigger than ever. It's bigger than Hollywood, and it actually is my roots. Ironically, I joined the video game industry when I was a kid. I was pretty young; I was in my 20s, and in 1990, went to work at Microprose, and then worked at Maxis and Activision, and ultimately PopCap and EA. But yeah, so it's a healthy industry. I know it well. But for whatever reason, board gaming has really come back into vogue. I think people enjoy doing something, social. They do enjoy doing something that has bits and pieces and toys and terrific, physical assets. That it's like playtime again. Something you're connecting with.
For sure, awesome. So yeah, but mine is Raccoon Tycoon. What's your current favorite game? I will let you pick your own game, but my audience might not like that. They might take me out into the woods and the raccoons might get me.
Yeah, no, I would never would never do that. Gosh, we played Charterstone tonight. I was with my gaming group up in Wheaton, Illinois, and we played Charterstone for the first time. So I'll just throw that out there as currently played, if not favorite. It was interesting. That's the thing. A lot of these new games, there's a lot of creativity, and that certainly was kind of a new take for us to play a game that had legacy and was kind of learning the rules as you unpack and play the game.
Cool. So I know I've heard of it and heard talk of it or whatnot. Per se, somebody hasn't, or somebody new to the podcast or new to the tabletop gaming world or whatnot, and hasn't heard or know much about Charterstone. What can you tell us about that game, Glenn?
Well, like I said, the main attribute is that it's kind of a learn as you go game. You unpack different components and cards, and you add new rules to that. You literally sticker to the rules manual as you go. So the various ways to play the game are added in. So it's good that you're able to have a shallow learning curve as you're kind of easing into a fairly complex experience. But it was interesting. It was a simple, at least in the opening stages, a simple worker placement game. But fairly entertaining in the sense that it was kind of something we were all learning together and all participating in together as you kind of build out this world.
Well, that's awesome. So, how would a game like that affect me? I hear I suffer from analysis paralysis.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be good, could be bad. I mean, as we evolved the board, there were more and more options. So in the beginning, it's fairly simple. But if you're gonna AP, this game might not be for you.
Oh boy, awesome. So, yeah, I mean, big into I like Risk and whatnot. I think we might have even touched on that last time. But have you played any other Legacy games? I really want to try to play that Risk Legacy. I mean.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. I haven't played that. No, this was my first experience with a game that you're evolving and developing, and at the same time almost ruining. In the sense that you're not going to be able to play the game again after you've completely marked up the board and changed everything. But I think the value of being able to play something for dozens of hours, if not more, even if you only play through it once, is certainly valuable.
Well, there you go. Awesome. Now, the real reason you come here tonight, Glenn, is the word on the street is you guys have a new game on Kickstarter. What can you tell us about Raccoon Tycoon?
Well, Raccoon Tycoon is really an attempt to create or recreate experiences like Monopoly or Catan or other simple economic games um, in a way that utilizes modern game design and is fun, fast, with many unique paths to victory. We're trying to put our arms around beginner gamers, gateway gamers, non-gamers, but all the way up to hardcore gamers. So even if you like games that are a little deeper and have more heavy strategy, you would still enjoy this game because even though it's easy to teach and easy to learn, there's a lot of different ways to win the game, a lot of different strategies. And so in a sense, this was our attempt to create a broad appeal economic strategy game.
Okay, I remember vaguely you telling me your model with like trying to capture all the gamers, especially like heavy gamers as well as beginners or non-gamers or whatnot. When we talked about railroad rivals, and I don't remember if it was part of the interview or afterwards, but you talked about how heavy cardboard had not wanted to try it, but then somehow they got to try it and loved it. Am I not mistaken?
No, that's true, and they're going to be doing a playthrough of Raccoon Tycoon actually next week. That again, those guys are super heavy gamers like I am. I love really heavy strategy games. And again, these games, Railroad Rivals and Raccoon Tycoon, are really even though they're easy to get into, they're not simple games. You've got to really play smart to win, and they're super competitive. The games, if you're playing against other core gamers, you're going to have a really a really tough experience winning the game.
But new gamers can jump right in too.
Absolutely, yeah. That's kind of the gist of what we're trying to do at Forbidden is create these gateway games that are not dumbed down. Right, so you can absolutely teach this game in less than 5 minutes. I was at Origins last week, and people were coming along, and I usually dread trying to teach a new game at a convention. It's so noisy, and you don't have a lot of time. There's so many distractions. But these both games, we had both games on the table, and people came along, and we taught the game in 5 minutes or less. We ended up, playing several games, or even if the playthrough was only for a few turns, people picked it up immediately and understood the game. As a matter of fact, I was able to teach Raccoon Tycoon and then after a turn or two, walk away and go do other things and come back, and they didn't even have any questions. They were able to like completely take over and just run with the game, which is a really great sign.
Awesome. So per se, I don't have a teacher when I sit down and play it. What's the rule book look like? I really hate rule books. Is that a big heavy book I have to read through, or how's that look?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. It's the rules portion of it, other than the whole first part of rules books now have to contain all the bits and all the what's in the game and everything. So if you look at just the rules, it's probably only about 6 pages. It's really tight. We've had a lot of people read through and edit the manual so that it's extremely easy to understand, easy to read, easy to get the game. But it's actually a fairly simple game in how you teach it. There's really 5 things that you can do on your turn, and you explain those 5 things, and basically the player chooses an action and does the action, moves on, and people are usually ready to go with what they want to do when it comes back around to them. So the turns rip through very quick, very little downtime.
Oh, okay. So I know this is a podcast and all. Well, before I say that, so per se, we were to sit down to play Raccoon Tycoon, or you were to sit down and teach us. I think we maybe have at least 5 more minutes, if not more, to do the podcast left. So per se, you were to sit down to teach us. How would that look, Glenn? Wait, I mean, how would that sound? This is a podcast after all.
I would say, hey, you got these 5 things you can do. Basically, you can produce goods. There's a little market on the top of the board for the 6 commodities, and the price goes up and down. And when you produce goods, you collect what's on your, you play one of your 3 cards, and it's a price production card. So you produce the goods that are on the bottom part, and then the goods that are on the top part are the prices that go up. So that affects the marketplace, and you collect your commodities. Then when you sell your goods, you get the number of units that you sell times the price, and then the price drops that many units. So you can either produce or you can sell. Those are 2 actions. And then there's 3 things you can purchase with the money in the commodities that you collect. One is an auction. So there's an auction mechanic in the game for railroad cards, and that's where the raccoon theme comes in. Every one of these railroads, and there's 6 of them, has a different animal: raccoons and skunks and bears and dogs and cats and foxes. And you're able to have an auction for one of the cards. And auctions are great because they really force the player to think on their feet, and they also reward the player who currently has more money than the others. So if you've just sold a bunch of goods and you're rich and everyone else has kind of already spent their money or hasn't yet sold their goods, you can get an advantage in having an auction quickly. So you can have an auction, and those cards are worth victory points. And the more of a specific railroad that you have, you get more points. So it's kind of a simple set collection. The 4th thing you can do is spend your resources, your commodities, to buy towns directly. You don't need even to have money to do it. You just use your commodities, and those towns are worth victory points. And if you match them up with a railroad card, you get bonus victory points. So you can't just do towns or just do railroads. You're incentivized to do both. And the last thing is really the heart of the deeper strategy of the game are building tiles. And the building tiles basically give you bonuses for production, victory points, or allow you to break the rules or get certain power-ups or advantages. And how they come out, into the game, they're drawn randomly out after the initial ones are bought. That really sets the pace and the strategy for what you can do. I had a similar mechanic in Age of Empires 3, The Age of Discovery, which was one of my most popular games. And that kind of a power-up tile gives you a lot of flexibility in the strategy and the direction that you want to take your game as a player. So, but that's it. That's really the whole game. You can do one of those 5 things on your turn, and the challenge is what order you do them, when you do them. Are you going to try to collect more commodities to let the market prices go up before you sell, or are you going to try to make a quick buck and get an advantage in an auction, or are you going to jump on that town while the cheap ones are still available, or are you going to build some buildings that really give you that develop your economic and game engine so that you can do more effective things later and kind of outpace the other players. So it really the devil's in the details of what you decide to do.
Awesome. So that sounds really cool. Now, before I forgot, I forgot to ask. You said Heavy Cardboard is going to be is that a live playthrough they're going to be doing next week?
They are, yeah. I think they're doing it Thursday night. Let me check my calendar here. Okay. Next Thursday night, the 28th. They're scheduled to do a live playthrough of Raccoon Tycoon, and I don't have the time, but I'm sure if you go to their Facebook page, they'll advertise it.
Okay, awesome. We'll go ahead and leave a link in the show notes or whatnot. But you said next Thursday?
Yep, June 28th.
Awesome. Yeah, so they can be able to check that out and see how it plays or whatnot. Now, I know you. Let's see. I know you're probably pretty biased or whatnot, because it's your game or whatnot. So per se, I know you said they'll be doing a playthrough, but are there any other reviewers or anybody else who checked it out that people might be able to see what they thought about it, so they don't necessarily have to take your word for it, Glenn?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find those videos. There's a lot of videos or written reviews on our Kickstarter page for Raccoon Tycoon, or RBGG page. We had some good quotes. I pulled a couple just in case you asked me. Board Game Spotlight said Raccoon Tycoon is the economic gateway game of the modern board game era. This game screams instant classic. So I really like that quote because it's kind of nails in exactly what we were going for. We're going for that kind of a modern version of an economic gateway game. And you think about Monopoly and all the things that are right with it and all the things that are wrong with it. If the designer of Monopoly had it to do over and he had access to the modern game mechanics, what would they do? How would they change the game? Because obviously it's popular with millions of people. There's some, as a gamer, we look at that game and we laugh and say, oh, too much luck, too much, player elimination, all these problems, too long. But there's something about that game that people love, right? It's, I think it's being that tycoon, right? Having a real estate empire, handling all that money and, being able to lord it over your opponents, that kind of, and set collection, simple set collection of those properties and railroads in Monopoly is just really gratifying. So, there's some stuff in there that's really good, but if you can eliminate what's broken and bring in some more modern game mechanics without making it too complicated, you might actually have a modern day classic.
For sure, yeah, it must be doing something right. I know everybody teases about how broken it is or whatnot, but with the game still being around and they're constantly coming out with new different editions or whatnot.
Yeah, you can't argue with success, right?
For sure, awesome. So, yeah, talking about success and whatnot. I know you've had other games and other game companies previously, but just this year, like with you guys and also Colossal Games, I don't know if anybody else has done it, but this is not your first rodeo this year. And I want to say that neither you nor, well, Colossal might be getting close to delivering some of their game, but neither of you guys have necessarily delivered any of your games, if I recall correctly, but have had several successful campaigns thus far. How does that go down? I guess you probably have a big following, or how did that go down with both you and them, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you build your following as a new company. As you mentioned, I've designed quite a few games over the last 20 years. So I guess I bring a little bit of at least credibility. People know that, I can design a game that's put together well. And I usually act as the art director. So I work with some really talented artists. In the case of Raccoon Tycoon, Annie Stegg, Gerard, who's just unbelievably talented and has made the game just really beautiful. Just absolutely, the board and the cards and the animals. It's really shocking how talented she is. So, yeah, so people look at that and they say, okay, these guys probably have their act together. If the game looks this good and you've got some pedigree on the designer side, they can trust that you're going to deliver a good product, even though they haven't played it.
Awesome, yeah, for sure. So that's pretty cool. So I know, if I recall correctly, I don't know, I might have bad memory, but I'm thinking stuff is returning to me. If I recall, the inspiration behind your other game was dominoes. You played some dominoes with your son or something. Am I correct?
Yeah, my son had gotten a new domino set for Christmas, and I opened up the rules, and I hadn't played dominoes forever, and read the rules, and I just I giggled. I was like, "Wow, this is really a dumb game." I think it's more of a time waster than a real game, but the mechanic is intriguing, right? You're just something simple like matching tiles. And so, yeah, I thought, well, gosh, what if we created a tile matching game that, wasn't pointless?
Cool. So where'd the inspiration for Raccoon Tycoon come from? Did you guys get a raccoon for Christmas or something?
Well, that's the theme. The inspiration for the game was a game night that my wife and I went to. We have some friends that aren't necessarily hardcore gamers, but they said, hey, come on over. We have this game called Settlers of Catan. And, we'll have some pizza and hang out. You guys can play this game. And naturally, I've played it several times. My wife had never played it. And so I thought, well, great, finally get her to play this game. And, she can discover, maybe get into Euro or modern board gaming. And so we played the game, and on the drive home, I asked her how she liked it, and to my great surprise, she said she hated it. And so I laughed and said, "Well, why did you hate it?" And her answer was that, she didn't really know what was going on at first, and so she didn't get really good numbers, and so she had a hard time every time it was her turn. She would roll the dice, and often they didn't really result with any production, because she didn't have any good numbers, never really got rolling in the game, building out roads and towns and things. And so she just generally had to pass every time it was her turn. And every once in a while she'd get to do something, but it was really unsatisfying. And so I thought, well, gosh, yeah, that's really right. In a game like that, or specifically that one, it can be your turn and you can't really do anything interesting. And so I thought, all right, well, again, going back to Monopoly and Catan, those are classic games. They have so much to recommend them. I'm like, well, what if I created a game that was kind of in that genre, but every time it was your turn, you could do something interesting. And that was kind of the basic idea of the game. And I, sat down the next day and kind of sketched out some actions, and the game kind of developed naturally.
Oh, okay. So, what's your wife think of the game?
Well, she likes it. She's not a big gamer though. It's really hard to get her to the table. Even so, you kind of have to bribe her or something. But my son really likes it. I have a 12-year-old son, and we were playtesting it, and we had him play in because we needed to fill out to 4 players, and he ended up kicking our butts. And again, we're hardcore strategy gamers. We're in there just doing every kind of analysis of, okay, we can get more points doing this or that strategy, and he just wailed on us. It was really kind of funny. So,
Wow.
First time player, 12-year-old beats the hardcore gamers.
Oh, well, yeah, that kind of reminds me of this I think it was last week. We played a new game that's on Kickstarter currently called Monster Card Boulevard. We played it with we had to take some of the cards out because some of the content, but we played it with me, my 10, 11, 10 and almost 10 and 11-year-old son and daughter, and then my 3-year-old daughter, and she ended up winning us all.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I mean, it's great to be able to play a game with your kids or your family that is easy to learn, but it's not a dumb game.
For sure, yeah, I'd have to agree with you. So that's awesome. So you talked of play testing and whatnot. During play testing of Raccoon Tycoon, was there ever anything you guys had to scrap because it just wouldn't work?
Yeah, I mean, funny you should say that. Was that a setup question? I don't remember telling you this, but there was a big one. I really fell in love with this it was a cube drawing mechanic where all the commodities had a cube associated with them, or several cubes, and you put them in a bag, and you draw some out to have the prices go up, and then you draw some out to add to a pool for production. And it was perfect because the more of a particular commodity that was produced, the price would stay low, right? Because it wouldn't go up. And it was a perfect supply and demand mechanic. But the thing that I didn't get, at least not right away, was it was terrifically annoying to have to be pulling cubes every darn turn, and it was just obnoxious. And so I had to give up on it. Eventually, my playtesters kept telling me that, yeah, it was really cool, but it just wasn't fun. It made the game a hassle to play. And so, I was trying to think how to fix that, and what should that mechanic evolve into that wasn't, still had most of that, perfectly balanced supply and demand. And a good friend of mine who's also a designer and a play tester for us, Dan Vujovic, said, well, it should be cards. And I thought, cards, that's not going to work. That won't be perfectly balanced. And then it struck me, well, what if you had the price and the production on the same card so that it was kind of, lined up. And so anyway, long story short, we got rid of that annoying mechanic, but kept the functionality intact.
Awesome. So on the other end, what is the thing that you're most proud of when it comes to Raccoon Tycoon?
Well, I guess it's that it is a game that has a good amount of strategy and depth. You're really always excited to play your next action. You're really, in there as you're watching the game, the other players take their turns and it goes pretty quick, but when it's your turn again, you're really like, oh man, I want to do like two or three things. And it's a really nice, delicious decision often of which thing you're going to do. And you kind of put together a little plan of, okay, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this. Then, so you don't not only have your next turn kind of pre-planned and ready, but you're maybe next two or three turns, you kind of know, all right, here's the strategy that I'm going to implement. I think that's a good thing to have in games, right? You want to reward players for being smart and having the right strategy, and you want them to have interesting decisions to make that affect the outcome.
Awesome. So if we do come up with strategy for like 2 to 3 turns in a row ahead or whatnot, can anybody throw our strategy off by their turns?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you have to remain adaptable. One of my favorite things to do is if I see someone building up, kind of a supply of a particular resource, and I see the price going up on that resource, I'll produce some of that resource just to dump it to drop the price in the marketplace.
Awesome. Okay, so you can screw your friends over. And how does somebody go about winning Raccoon Tycoon, Glenn?
Well, it's a combination of victory points, as in most of these games, and you get the points by owning good sets of the railroads, having enough towns that are worth good points that match up with the railroads. So if you've got say 5 or 6 railroads, you want to have 5 or 6 towns to maximize your bonus, and then good strong buildings that also give some victory points. So those 3 things are the victory point generators, and you need a balanced approach to make that happen. You got to have money, you got to have the right commodities and the right strategy. But it's it's executing a good strategy in the end.
Well, that's pretty cool. So as I'm playing, am I able to tell how many victory points other people have, or is that kind of hidden, or how does that go down?
No, it's all public information. You can hide your money in the game, right? So if there's an auction going and you can't really tell what the other guy's money situation is, so you don't know how high he could go. But the victory points are all public, so you can kind of, you can look over and glance and kind of see and tell how the other players are doing. You're not always exactly right. That's a good thing. I think you don't want to get, as you were saying, into that AP, situation where you're calculating exactly who's got what. But if you really needed to do that, I guess you could give it a shot.
Cool, that's pretty cool. So yeah, so that sounds like a really cool game or whatnot. But per se, Glenn, somebody's fallen asleep. It wouldn't be because of you or your great game. It'd be because of me and my podcast. Sometimes they get tired of hearing me drone on and on. We're like almost at the last week of June, and as of what yesterday morning we'd released our 94th episode of the year, so they get a little tired of hearing me drone on and on, so sometimes they fall asleep or whatnot, but they've suddenly been jolted awake so they don't hit the oncoming traffic. Why should they take a chance on Raccoon Tycoon, especially with all the other great games out there on Kickstarter currently?
Well, I'll tell you, it's really because you're going to be able to play it with your gamer buddies and enjoy it. You're going to be able to play it with your neighbors who really aren't gamers, and they come over for a couple of cocktails, and you break this thing out, and you can have an enjoyable evening and hook in some new gamers. So the ability to recruit new people and introduce them to the hobby that you and I love with a game that's really easy to get into, but has some really tight Euro and modern game mechanics. Or play with your kids. I saw there was a podcast, or not a podcast, but a live playthrough the other night by the Board Game Spotlight folks, and it was the 2 of them, and they were playing with their parents. And I didn't get the sense that the parents were necessarily hardcore gamers, but this is a perfect game for that. So this is a game you can add to your collection that you can literally play it with anyone, and you're not bored to tears. You're actually really into the game and enjoying it. But so is grandma, so is junior, so are the neighbors. It's really a nice game that has that medium weight, but easy to get into.
Awesome. So it's not going to be like, because when I was a kid, I really loved Sorry, but I recently picked it up because I wanted to play. Well, it's not so recent anymore, but I picked it up this last year, I think, because I really liked it when I was a kid. But then I sat down to play with my kids, and I was like, wow, I liked this as a kid.
Yeah, we do grow out of some of those early games, and it's yeah, this isn't that game. This is a game that's going to hold up, and you might get tired of it if you played it 20 or 30 times, but I think it's gonna have a lot of replayability, and it'll hit the table in a lot of different situations.
Well, that's good. So what is it going to set somebody back so they can bring Raccoon Tycoon home to themselves?
Well, the current Kickstarter, we're offering a limited edition deluxe version of the game with all the stretch goals, and there's some pretty cool ones for $49.99. Down the road, we'll do a simplified version that's not so fancy, and it'll sell for probably $40. Maybe you'd even find it in a Target or something for 30. Who knows? But it's a $50 game, which is extraordinarily reasonable for everything we're putting into it. And then we also offer metal coins for those who don't like paper money. But in our stretch goals, the paper money will evolve into something that's almost like currency quality money for the game. So you'll still have, folding money, but it'll be really nice, high quality paper that's not able to be destroyed or harmed.
Okay, that's awesome. And per se, somebody does take a chance and back it. I know you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. I know you also got to deliver another game before this one. But when should they anticipate getting Raccoon Tycoon?
Yeah, we've got a really nice schedule set because the game is essentially done. We've got all the files are complete, all the graphics are complete. We may add a little bit of new art that we had some people ask for in the campaign, and we want to be responsive. But to answer your question, the game will be produced and ready around Essen. So whether we can make Essen or not, we don't know, but that's what we're shooting for. So the game will be available in October.
Oh, okay, awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And what about the other one? When are people going to be able to start seeing your other game,
Well,
Railroad Tycoon?
yeah, Railroad Rivals is in
Yeah, Railroad Rivals.
manufacturing. It's being produced right now in the factory in China. So we've been asking them to have it done so we could have it at Gen Con. We're going to probably have to air freight it to get it there, but so it'll be ready mid-July, which most of the goods have to get on a boat and get over here. So you're looking at like mid-August for retail consumers, and then if you're at Gen Con, you'll be able to get a copy there.
Well, there you go. So that's pretty cool. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. So, and we'll make sure we leave links in the show notes or whatnot, so everybody can go back and see all about Raccoon Tycoon, because sometimes people don't want to go ahead and type out, so they want to click it or whatnot. And this was funded in 24 hours, so it's already reached its goals. And it looks like you're going towards stretch goals. What are some of the upcoming stretch goals you got going on, Glenn?
Well, the ones that I'm really excited about, other than the currency quality, money, which I think is a big one for some people, we're going with 3D commodities, like little commodity meeple wood bits instead of cubes, and I think that's a nice one. We had those in our prototypes, and people really appreciated that. So really nice bits that you're able to play with, and also we want the game to look phenomenal. The artwork is so beautiful. So we made some of the cards, the railroad cards and the town cards are going to be in tarot size, so extra large cards. We left the price and production cards normal size because those are the ones you'll be handling all the time. We didn't want to make those so big, they were ungainly. But these other, victory point cards, which you'll take from the board and put in front of you when you buy them, man, they're going to be really oversized, beautiful productions. And the last thing is we're going to have metallic inks on all the cards and tiles and even the box, so that if we hit those stretch goals, so we can really have this look like a like a luxe and a premium production.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, just looking at perusing the Kickstarter page, it looks like a pretty awesome game, and love the art, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah, again, Annie Stegg, Gerard, and I got to give credit to our graphic designer, Jacoby O'Connor's been doing our graphic design, for about 18 years, since the Eagle Games days, and he's just so talented. He works, a little bit for some other game publishers as well, but I hog him mostly to myself because he's just that good.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, so awesome. Yeah, so like I said, we'll make sure we leave links in the show notes or whatnot. Now, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to listen to any of our podcasts. I know you were on one previously, but the next portion of our podcast is called Adventures in Application Acquisition, where we talk about an app, be it for your cell phone, your tablet, your computer, or even a video game. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be related to tycoons or raccoons or tabletop board gaming. But is there an app you use a lot of, Glenn, that we can talk about for a moment?
That's a great question. Just looking at my phone now to see what it is. I mean, weirdly, the apps I use all the time are the obvious ones, right? Like Facebook and Weather Channel, and we've been using Slack a lot lately. Actually, now that you mention it, for dealing with our team. We've got our different team members and play testers and graphic designers and all the guys on the team, and we tend to, I don't know if you've done a segment on Slack or know what it is, but it's just a really useful communication tool where you can put files, graphic files or pictures or whatever, or just messages to each other back and forth. So it's like kind of maybe a more organized chat kind of software.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we recently started a Slack thing with the group that I'm working with. But per se, somebody hasn't used it before. Is that different than Discord, or have you ever used Discord or any of those other ones?
I haven't. No, this is kind of my first foray into, kind of a chat app where it's, file sharing and image sharing. So this is my first one. I hear it's a commonly used one. So I recommend it. It's working well for us. We've been using it now for a few months and really liking it.
Awesome. Per se, you own the rights to the Slack app, Glenn. What would be one thing you would do to fix it or make it better?
Man, I don't know if I'm the guy to ask for that. Geez, what would I do to make it better? I guess, yeah, I have nothing on that one. Sorry, man.
Well, there you go. So yeah, we try to make a green podcast. So if anybody ever deals with Slack or any of the creators or whatnot is ever listening, you heard it here first on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. Glenn thinks it's, I don't know, perfect or whatnot, but he can't think of anything to do to fix it or make it better. So there you go. So yeah, it looks like a pretty cool app. So that's awesome. Now we don't want to keep you all night, Glenn, but minus coming there to your hometown in Illinois or whatnot. How would people go about? So minus coming there to your hometown to stalk you. How would people go about finding out about you or what Forbidden Games has going on in the future and whatnot?
We've got a really neat website that's again, our graphic designer does a great job of beautifying and adding lots of great assets. So you could check us out on forbiddengames.net or forbidden.games also works, gets you there. And we've got a pretty complete and active Facebook page at Forbidden Games. So absolutely check us out on Facebook or on the website. And you can always find our current Kickstarters.
Awesome. So that's awesome. Yeah, well, like I said, we'll make sure we leave links in the show notes or whatnot. Any parting words for the audience about Raccoon Tycoon or do you have any dirt coming up for upcoming games that you might be launching after this?
Yeah. I'll just throw out a little teaser on it. We're working on a few games simultaneously. These, the whole intention of launching the company this year was to, launch 4 really good games. And we've been kind of simultaneously working on art and game design and fine tuning everything. So we've got a schedule that's a new game pretty much every quarter. So Railroad Rivals was in March and Raccoon Tycoon in June. So the next one is scheduled to launch in the September timeframe, and we've got most of the art done, and it's really exciting. We've got a Disney artist named Mark Page doing the artwork, and it's a pirate theme, but it's not really the rugged, dirty, realistic, gritty pirates. It's the Disney pirate, and they're all animated in Disney style, and it's just a gorgeous production. Jared Blando, who does fantasy maps, and he did the map of the Caribbean for the game board. This is going to be again, similar to these other games, really easy game to get into, but it's got some great mechanics, really fun game, and just gorgeous art. I can't tell you how just luxe it's going to look.
Well, there you have it. That's awesome. So yeah, so go ahead and jump over to their Facebook page or their website, or even better yet, jump over to their Kickstarter page, and you can click that little follow link on the top. Or imagine you could even you can go ahead and back this game so you can get it in the near future. Or even if you can't afford the game or whatnot, go ahead and throw $1 towards Forbidden Games, and that way you can get all the updates for upcoming stuff. Is that right, Glenn?
That's right.
Awesome. So yeah, like I said, we don't want to keep you all night, but we really appreciate you coming on Getting Geeky with Game Relief with us tonight, Glenn.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
No problem.
It's time for Kickstarter Corner. To begin now.
This week on Kickstarter Corner, we've got some great games to tell you all about that are currently on the Kickstarters. To start it off, we got from Dark Naga Adventures, we've got Dark Naga Carcosa for 5th edition. It's a non-linear adventure in the classic sandbox style, where the party levels 11 through 12 fights to escape the lair of an old one, Astar. They are overfunded. They are like over 100%, so 200%, I guess, if you will, funded, and they are going for 9 more days, ending the 1st of July. So definitely give this one a check out. Love some of the art in there, and yeah, you might too. So check it out on the Kickstarters. Just click the links that we include in the show notes. It'll take you directly there. Next one, we've got Last One In, a zombie-themed card game. Last One In is a 2 to 4 player zombie-themed card game where players race to save civilians or flood their opponent's town with zombies. We had them on the show. We had Mark on the show, as well as our friend Richard over at We're Not Wizards also had him on the show, so definitely check that out. It sounds like a fun game. Next, we've got Yard of the Month, Smash Gnomes. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Last One In, it goes through the 3rd of July, so definitely check that one out before your holiday season if you're here in the States, and make sure you back it if you like what you see. Next, we've got Yard of the Month, Smash Gnomes, the gnome-smashing, garden-sabotaging game of wits, flowers, and fun for the whole family. Did I mention gnome-smashing? Definitely check this one out. Princess Leaf from our podcast, you might know her and love her. She gave it 5,000 leaves. It became her new instant favorite game. So definitely check that out. Next, we've got Dragonscales Fantasy RPG by James M. Ward and Stephen A. Lee. It's a new fantasy role-playing game based on James M. Ward's card system. That's right, card system, not dice. Explore the Chromatic Kingdoms, the City of Concord, and the Great Rift Canyon. They're just barely funded not too long ago, and they still got 17 days to go. Going through the 9th of July, so definitely check that out. Next, we've got The Forgotten Dungeon, Mega Adventure. It's a D&D and D&D 5e, DS, and 77W. The Forgotten Dungeon is an old-school adventure, you know I love old school, that incorporates legendary artists from the days of TSR, AD&D, D&D 5e, 77W, and DSRPG. They're over 200% funded as well, and they still got 38 days to go, going through the end of July, the 30th. So definitely check that one out. And then last but not least, on this week's Kickstarter Corner, from Mind Bent Ideas, we've got Lunar 5000. It's a board game where players build and race in a personalized spaceship. When the dice hit the table, Will you be in the winner's circle? I don't know. You'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, the Leafs will be reviewing this game. If not, either way, you should definitely check it out. They've got 20 days to go, going through the 12th of July. And did you like us talking with Glen? If you liked it, go ahead and definitely check out his game as well over there on the Kickstarters. Going through, what did we say? Well, he told us, and I can tell you, well, I don't know if he told us. It's got 19 days. Going through the 11th of July. Love the art. And if the Leafs are lucky and we play our cards right, we also might be bringing you a review of Raccoon Tycoon. So watch out for that as well. Anyways, it's your least favorite time, our least favorite time. Time for us to get on with our lives and you to get on with your lives. But in the meantime, you know what to do, don't you? Well, I hope so, but if you're new to the podcast, you may not. But anyways, go ahead and get geeky, stay geeky, and bring others in the geek fold. And you know what? We'll catch you all on the, you guessed it, flip side. Game Relief out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.